Every human being wants to grow. We all want to be better, to become more fulfilled, to feel like our lives matter. But the truth is, most people never stop to ask themselves why they want what they want. They chase improvement without purpose, success without direction, and change without understanding what truly drives them. The foundation of becoming a better human always begins with one simple, yet profound question. Why? Why do I want to be better? Why do I care? Why am I here? When you don't know your why, you end up living life on autopilot. You move from one goal to the next, constantly doing, but rarely feeling. You accomplish things, but still feel empty. You follow the crowd, yet never feel connected to yourself. Knowing your why is about reconnecting to meaning. It's about anchoring every action to something that matters to you on a deep personal level. Without it, you're not leading your life, you're just reacting to it. Your why is not something external. It doesn't come from your job title, your bank balance, or the approval of others. It's internal. It's the belief that fuels your behavior, the cause that gives purpose to your actions. When you find your why, you start leading yourself with intention. You stop chasing what's popular and start pursuing what's meaningful. You stop comparing yourself to others because your compass points inward, not outward. To find your why, you must turn inward. Ask yourself what moments in life made you feel most alive. Think about the times when you forgot about time when you were so immersed in something that it felt natural, effortless, meaningful. That's your clue. Your why often hides behind the things you take for granted, the things you do even if no one noticed, the things that give you quiet fulfillment. Once you uncover it, protect it. Guard it from the noise of the world. Because when you lose your why, you lose yourself. Living with purpose doesn't mean you have all the answers. It means you have a direction. It means that even when life gets uncertain, you know what matters most. The storms don't scare you as much because you know why you're in the boat. You're not living for approval anymore, you're living for alignment. The world may still be chaotic, but you no longer are. Because when your why is clear, every decision becomes simpler, every relationship becomes deeper, every day becomes meaningful. A better human is not someone who has everything figured out. It's someone who has chosen to live by intention rather than impulse. It's someone who knows that purpose is not something you find once it's something you practice every day. Every choice you make either brings you closer to your why or further away from it. That's why self-awareness is the beginning of humanity. Before you can make the world better, you must first understand what makes you come alive. Empathy is one of the most powerful skills a human being can develop, yet it's also one of the most overlooked. We are taught from a young age how to communicate, how to express ourselves, and how to be heard, but rarely are we taught how to truly listen, how to understand others without judgment, and how to see the world through someone else's eyes. Empathy is not about agreeing with people, it's about understanding them. It's not about fixing others, it's about connecting with them. And in a world that's louder than ever, empathy has become a quiet form of strength. To be a better human, you must first learn to listen. Not the kind of listening where you're waiting for your turn to talk, but the kind where your only goal is to understand. Most people hear words, empathetic people hear feelings. They listen for the tone, the silence between sentences, the emotions that don't always have words. Empathy is being fully present with someone without the need to interrupt or correct them. It's saying, I see you, I get it, you matter. It's giving another person the dignity of being heard. Empathy requires humility. It requires you to set aside your perspective long enough to make space for someone else's. It's uncomfortable at times because it means you might encounter ideas or emotions that challenge your own. But that's where growth happens. The absence of empathy is not cruelty, it's disconnection. When we stop trying to understand one another, we start to see each other as categories instead of people, coworkers, strangers, opponents. That's when relationships weaken, communities fragment, and societies divide. The presence of empathy reverses that. It turns conflict into curiosity and indifference into compassion. One of the greatest misunderstandings about empathy is that it makes you soft. In truth, it makes you strong. It takes courage to feel what others feel. It takes resilience to carry compassion in a world that often rewards detachment. Empathy doesn't mean you agree with everyone. It means you respect their humanity even when you disagree with their ideas. It means you can stand firm in your beliefs without making someone else small for theirs. It's not about who's right or wrong. It's about the willingness to understand before you judge. Every relationship thrives on empathy. In leadership, empathy builds trust. When a leader takes time to understand what their people are experiencing, they create an environment where honesty can exist. Teams perform better when they feel seen and valued. In friendships, empathy deepens connection. It turns surface-level conversations into meaningful dialogue. In families, empathy heals. It bridges generational gaps, softens misunderstandings, and reminds people that love is not about agreement, but acceptance. To practice empathy, you must be willing to slow down. You can't understand someone if you're rushing to respond. Put down the phone when someone talks to you. Look them in the eyes. Listen for what they're not saying. Instead of saying, "I know exactly how you feel," try asking, "Can you help me understand how that feels for you?" Questions open hearts, assumptions close them. The goal of empathy is not to be right, but to be real. When someone feels understood, they become more open, more honest, and more human. Empathy also applies to yourself. Too often, we extend compassion to others but deny it to ourselves. We beat ourselves up for mistakes, criticize our emotions, and expect perfection. But you cannot give what you don't have. Self-empathy is acknowledging your own struggles without shame. It's telling yourself, "I'm doing the best I can," and meaning it. When you treat yourself with empathy, you model what healthy humanity looks like. You show others that kindness isn't weakness, it's wisdom. The world doesn't need more brilliant minds, it needs more understanding hearts. We don't need more people shouting their opinions, we need more people willing to listen with openness. Empathy is not a luxury skill, it's a life skill. It's the foundation of trust, collaboration, and genuine connection. When you lead with empathy, you remind others that they're not alone, and sometimes that reminder is all it takes to change a life. Most people live their lives as if they're playing a game that ends. They treat success like a finish line, relationships like transactions, and personal growth like a checklist. They focus on winning, achieving, and proving themselves, and then they wonder why they still feel empty after they've won. The truth is, life isn't a finite game. There's no scoreboard, no final victory, no single moment when everything is complete. Life is an infinite game, and to be a better human, you have to start playing with an infinite mindset. A finite mindset says, "I want to win." An infinite mindset says, "I want to keep growing." The finite player measures progress by comparison, by being better than someone else. The infinite player measures progress by contribution, by being better than they were yesterday. When you live with a finite mindset, every setback feels like failure, and every success feels temporary. But when you think infinitely, even failure becomes a lesson, and success becomes a step in a larger journey. The infinite mindset begins with understanding that the goal is not to be the best, it's to become better. It's not about competing against others, but collaborating with them. There will always be someone smarter, faster, richer, or more skilled than you. But the infinite player doesn't care about that. They understand that the only real competition is with their previous self. That's where real fulfillment begins, not in winning against others, but in growing beyond yourself. This mindset also changes the way we view leadership, relationships, and purpose. Leaders with a finite mindset chase quarterly results and short-term recognition. Leaders with an infinite mindset build culture, trust, and legacy. They don't think about how to be successful now, they think about how to remain valuable later. They plant seeds for a forest they might never sit under, and that's what makes them great. They know that the purpose of leadership is not to win the game, but to make sure the game continues for those who come after them. The infinite mindset also requires patience. In a world obsessed with instant gratification, patience is rare, but it's essential. When you think infinitely, you understand that meaningful progress takes time. You stop chasing fast results and start building long-term growth. You stop forcing outcomes and start trusting the process. You stop asking, "How fast can I get there?" and start asking, "How far can I go?" Every relationship, every goal, every act of kindness compounds over time. The infinite player doesn't rush, they endure. The finite mindset feeds the ego. It says, "I need to be seen as important." The infinite mindset feeds the soul. It says, "I need to do something important." The finite player collects recognition. The infinite player creates impact. One plays for applause, the other plays for purpose. And when you play for purpose, you never truly lose because every action, every effort, every act of integrity adds value to the larger game of life. When you live infinitely, relationships stop being transactional. You don't help people because it benefits you, you help them because it sustains the game. You don't lead people to look powerful. You lead them to create progress. The measure of your life is not in how many people served you, but in how many people you served. The infinite mindset teaches you to think beyond yourself, beyond your lifetime, beyond your comfort zone. It's about legacy, about building something that continues long after you're gone. We live in a world that rewards confidence, control, and certainty. We are taught to look strong, to appear like we have everything figured out, to never show weakness. But the truth is, the more we try to appear perfect, the further we drift from what it means to be human. Perfection is not relatable, it's intimidating. Vulnerability, on the other hand, is what makes us real. It's what makes people trust us, connect with us, and feel safe around us. To be a better human, you must learn the strength of being open, honest, and imperfect. You must learn to be vulnerable. Vulnerability is not about oversharing or seeking pity. It's about having the courage to be authentic, to show up as yourself without the mask of perfection. It's the willingness to say, I don't know, I need help, or I made a mistake. When you hide behind confidence, people may admire you. When you show vulnerability, people connect with you. And connection is what every human being truly needs. It's what creates trust, loyalty, and belonging. People don't follow the person who seems flawless. They follow the one who's honest enough to be real. Owning your mistakes is one of the hardest, but most powerful acts of growth. Many people spend so much energy defending their image that they forget to improve themselves. When you refuse to acknowledge mistakes, you deny yourself the opportunity to learn. But when you take responsibility, you take back power. Admitting you were wrong doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise. It shows that your integrity matters more than your pride. It shows that truth matters more than being right. The reason vulnerability is so powerful is that it builds trust faster than any performance ever could. Think about it. When someone admits a mistake, apologizes sincerely, or shares a struggle, we don't see them as weak. We see them as courageous. We see them as human. That's why teams led by vulnerable leaders are more cohesive. That's why relationships grounded in honesty last longer. Vulnerability dissolves the walls that fear builds. It allows others to be honest too. It creates a space where truth is safe. There's another kind of vulnerability that's equally important, the vulnerability to feel. Many to be vulnerable also means to accept that failure is part of being human. We all stumble, we all make wrong choices. But what defines us is not how often we fail, it's how honestly we rise. Vulnerability allows you to own your story, not to be ashamed of it, but to use it as a source of strength. Every scar carries a lesson. Every mistake carries wisdom, and every setback carries a seed of growth. When you embrace your humanity instead of hiding it, you unlock the ability to connect, to grow, and to lead with authenticity. Being vulnerable is not about seeking validation. It's about showing up truthfully, even when it's uncomfortable. It's about trading glory behind the behavior. It reminds you that everyone you meet is fighting a battle you can't see. When you approach people with empathy instead of criticism, you stop reacting to their actions and start responding to their emotions. You begin to see not just what they do, but why they do it, and that understanding can transform even the most difficult relationships. Empathy also makes you a better communicator. When you understand what someone is feeling, you can speak to their heart, not just their mind. You can choose words that heal instead of words that hurt. You can disagree without disrespecting. You can correct without condemning. Communication grounded in empathy doesn't just exchange information, it builds connection. It allows people to be honest without fear of judgment. And that kind of connection is what turns conversations into relationships and relationships into communities. Practicing empathy daily also means extending it to yourself. You can't give what you don't have. If you constantly judge yourself harshly, you'll inevitably project that same judgment onto others. Self-empathy means recognizing that you're human, that mistakes, flaws, and failures don't make you unworthy. They make you real. When you treat yourself with compassion, you model that same compassion for others. You create a space where imperfection is not something to hide, but something to embrace. Empathy doesn't just make you kinder, it makes you wiser. It helps you lead with compassion communicate with clarity, and connect with authenticity. It transforms the way you respond to others, the way you solve problems, and the way you see the world. Because when you start practicing empathy every day, you stop living only for yourself. You start becoming the kind of human being who makes others feel safe to be themselves. And that's one of the greatest contributions anyone can make. Becoming a better human isn't about perfection, it's about progress. It's about choosing growth over comfort, honesty over image, and service over ego. Each of these principles, vulnerability, service, understanding, purpose, and empathy, forms the foundation of a meaningful life. They're not quick habits to master, but lifelong practices to live by. When you learn to be vulnerable, you stop pretending and start connecting. When you lead by serving, you inspire trust instead of fear. When you communicate to understand, you build bridges instead of walls. When you choose purpose over comfort, you find meaning that no amount of success can replace. And when you practice empathy every day, you transform not just how you see others, but how you see yourself. The truth is, being a better human doesn't require extraordinary talent or power. It requires heart. It's in how you treat people who can do nothing for you. It's in how you respond when things go wrong. It's in how you choose integrity when no one is watching. Every day, you have the opportunity to be a little more patient, a little more kind, a little more human. And when you do, you don't just change your own life. You give others permission to do the same. That's how better humans create a better world. One act of understanding, one moment of service, one choice of courage at a time. Trust. And trust can only be earned through consistent acts of care, honesty, and sacrifice. The greatest misconception about leadership is that it's about control. Control creates fear. Service creates respect. A leader who uses control may get obedience, but a leader who serves gets commitment. People will give more to someone they feel valued by than someone they fear. When you make people feel safe, respected, and supported, they don't just perform better, they believe in what they're doing. They stop working for you and start working with you. That's the difference between managing and leading. Service-based leadership also means making decisions that benefit others, even when it doesn't immediately benefit you. It's about taking responsibility when things go wrong and giving credit when things go right. It's about showing up for others without expecting recognition in return. True service often happens in silence, the encouragement you give when no one is watching, the understanding you offer when someone fails, the patience you show when it would be easier to criticize. These are the invisible acts that build loyalty and trust. When you serve others, you set an example that ripples far beyond your immediate influence. People learn more from what you do than what you say. When they see you treat everyone with respect, from the janitor to the CEO, they notice. When they see you own your mistakes instead of blaming others, they remember. When they see you lift others instead of competing with them, they follow your lead. Service breeds respect. Respect breeds influence. And influence earned through service lasts far longer than authority gained through position. In a world obsessed with personal gain, service might seem like a slow path to success. But it's the only path that builds something that lasts. Titles fade, positions change. But the impact of how you made others feel remains forever. People won't remember the numbers you achieved, but they will remember how you treated them when they struggled. They'll remember the leader who listened, who cared, who believed in them when they didn't believe in themselves. That's the kind of leadership the world needs, leadership that starts with the heart. Service-driven leadership also builds stronger teams and healthier environments. When people feel valued, they contribute more. When they feel protected, they take risks and innovate. When they feel trusted, they stay loyal. The entire system becomes stronger because its foundation is trust, not fear. The best leaders aren't remembered for being powerful, they're remembered for being kind, fair, and consistent. To lead by serving means understanding that leadership is never about you. It's about the people you're responsible for. The power you hold is not for your advantage, but for their protection. The decisions you make should reflect not your ambition, but your values. True leaders know that greatness is not measured by how high they climb, but by how many people they bring up with them. The legacy of a servant leader is not written in awards or titles, but in the lives they've touched, the trust they've earned, and the growth they've inspired in others. Most people listen with the intent to reply, not to understand. They wait for their turn to speak, to defend, or to prove a point. But true communication isn't a competition, it's a connection. The purpose of communication isn't to win an argument, but to bridge understanding. If you want to become a better human being, you must master the art of listening, not just hearing words, but truly understanding where someone is coming from. Because when people feel understood, they open up. When they feel judged, they shut down. The reason most communication fails is because it's driven by ego, not curiosity. We want to be heard more than we want to hear. We want to be understood more than we want to understand. But communication is not about domination, it's about exchange. Every person sees the world through a different lens, shaped by their experiences, values, and beliefs. If you approach every conversation thinking your perspective is the only truth, you'll never learn. But if you enter it with curiosity, asking, why do they see it that way? You'll start to uncover insights that can change how you see the world. Good communication also means mastering silence. Silence is not the absence of words, it's the presence of understanding. When you pause before responding, you give space for thought. You show respect. You allow emotions to settle. Great communicators know that listening deeply often speaks louder than words. It tells the other person, I value what you're saying. I'm not here to fight. I'm here to understand. That kind of respect creates connection, and connection builds trust. To communicate effectively, you also need to manage your emotions. When emotions lead, logic disappears. Many arguments aren't really about the words spoken, they're about unexpressed feelings behind those words. Learning to stay calm, to breathe before reacting, to seek meaning instead of offense, turns a conflict into a dialogue. Emotional intelligence isn't about suppressing feelings. It's about using them wisely. When you stay grounded, you can listen without being defensive and respond without causing harm. Communication to understand also means asking better questions. Instead of saying, you're wrong, try asking, help me understand how you see it. This doesn't mean you have to agree. It means you respect the other person's experience. It's an act of humility, acknowledging that you might not have all the answers. When you communicate this way, you create an environment of openness instead of defensiveness. People lower their guard because they feel seen, not attacked. That's when real dialogue begins. The most effective communicators know that tone matters more than words. You can say the right thing the wrong way and lose the message entirely. You can disagree respectfully and still maintain connection. Communication is not just about expressing ideas, it's about transferring emotion, intention, and respect. It's about aligning hearts before you try to align minds. In leadership, in friendship, in love, communication defines the strength of every relationship. Miscommunication breeds distance, understanding builds unity. When you make others feel heard, you make them feel valued. When you truly listen, people trust you more, they share more, they follow more. And you, in turn, learn more about them and yourself. Every person you meet has a story, and you can only learn it if you stop trying to tell yours first. To communicate to understand means to value truth over victory, connection over control. It's not about proving someone wrong, it's about learning what's right together. When you lead conversations with empathy, curiosity, and patience, you not only become a better communicator, you become a better human being. Because understanding someone deeply is one of the greatest acts of kindness you can offer. Every human being faces a choice in life to chase comfort or to pursue purpose. Comfort is easy. It feels good. It's safe. It demands nothing and risks nothing. But it also gives nothing lasting in return. Purpose, on the other hand, is difficult. It challenges you. It stretches you. It pushes you beyond your limits. Yet, it's the only thing that makes life meaningful. To be a better human, you must learn to value purpose over comfort, to trade short-term ease for long-term fulfillment. Comfort is seductive because it promises peace without struggle. But the truth is, peace doesn't come from avoiding discomfort. It comes from overcoming it. Every meaningful achievement in life comes from discomfort, learning a new skill, building a relationship, healing from pain, or chasing a dream. Growth and comfort cannot coexist. The moment you choose to grow, you must be ready to face discomfort. That discomfort isn't a sign you're failing, it's proof you're evolving. The path of purpose is never easy, but it's always worth it. Purpose also demands patience. Comfort wants instant results, it wants satisfaction now. Purpose understands that great things take time. It teaches you to persist when nothing seems to be working, to keep showing up when motivation fades, to believe when results are invisible. When you live with purpose, you stop chasing quick wins and start investing in meaningful progress. You understand that consistency matters more than intensity and impact matters more than recognition. That's what separates those who merely exist from those who truly live. Purpose doesn't always mean a grand mission or a world-changing goal. Sometimes it's found in the small things, in being kind when it's easier to ignore, in doing your work with integrity, in helping one person at a time. What matters is not the scale of your purpose, but the sincerity of it. When your actions are driven by meaning, even the simplest tasks become significant. A life of purpose is not about being the best. It's about being useful, being consistent, and being driven by something that lights you up from within. When you live with purpose, you stop needing validation. You stop comparing yourself to others. You realize that fulfillment comes not from what you have, but from who you become in the process of pursuing what matters. Purpose turns your life into a story worth telling, not because it's perfect, but because it's meaningful. And the moment you choose purpose over comfort, you start living as the person you were always meant to be, not the one the world expects, but the one your soul recognizes. If there's one skill that truly defines what it means to be human, it's empathy. The ability to step outside your own perspective and see through the eyes of another. To feel what they feel, to understand what they're going through, is what connects us beyond logic, beyond difference, beyond judgment. Empathy starts with presence. You can't understand someone if you're not truly paying attention. In a world filled with noise, distraction, and constant digital connection, genuine presence is rare. Most of us listen to reply, not to understand. We're so focused on what we'll say next that we miss what's being said now. Practicing empathy means slowing down enough to actually listen not just to the words, but to the pauses, the tone, the silence in between. It means putting your phone down, your judgment aside, and giving someone your full attention. Because presence says, you matter. And that's something everyone needs to hear. True empathy also requires humility, the willingness to admit that you don't know what it's like to be someone else. You may not share their experiences, but you can still care about their pain. You can still try to understand their perspective. It's about replacing assumptions with curiosity. Instead of saying, I know how you feel, say, help me understand how you feel. That small shift opens the door to compassion instead of comparison. Empathy is not about fixing someone. It's about being with them where they are. One of the greatest barriers to empathy is judgment. It's easy to care about people who agree with us, look like us, or live like us. The real test of empathy is how we treat those who don't. Empathy asks you to see the human behind the label, the story image for integrity. When you drop the armor, you find freedom. You no longer need to pretend or perform. You simply live as who you are, imperfect, but real. And that's where real power comes from. Because the people who have the courage to be vulnerable are the ones who remind the rest of us that we don't have to be perfect to be worthy. We just have to be human. Leadership has never been about having authority, a title, or power over others. Real leadership is about service, the act of putting others before yourself, of lifting people up instead of standing above them. The best leaders in history weren't those who demanded loyalty, but those who inspired it through humility, consistency, and care. To be a better human, you must learn to lead not through status, but through service. Because the true measure of leadership is not how many people work for you, but how many people you help grow. Service begins with perspective. Most people step into leadership roles thinking, what can I get? True leaders ask, what can I give? They understand that leadership is a responsibility, not a privilege. It's not about the perks that come with the position. It's about the people who depend on your integrity. When you focus on status, you end up leading with ego. When you focus on service, you lead with purpose. People don't follow titles, they follow